Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wrestling Royalty and Gimme Ho Yeah, whichever channel you're watching. I really appreciate you joining us on here at the Friday feature. And I'm going to be joined by a couple of guests. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring them in very, very quickly. You'll know them. They've been on the show many times before. But before I do bring them in, I just want to say thank you very much to anyone who watched the last video. It did become the most watched video on the channel so far. And there's a good few new subscribers as well. So if you are here for the first time, a couple of things. Don't be shy. Join in the conversation. We love to have your comments. We'll read out the ones as much as we possibly can. Keep it clean. Keep it fun. That's what we're here for. We're here to have a good chat about some wrestling and some very spooky goings on this week. So as you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about Uncle Howdy and his return. And he brought some friends as well. So I'm hoping you can hear me as everyone is in. We've got a few people in. Getting the thumbs up. So I'll bring in the first guest who you've seen many, many times before. Bring in Mr. Sam Smith from Gimme Ho Yeah, from WrestleSphere. I was pointing straight over your shoulder there. Or are you just making sure there's no one in the background ready to...
Bit of both. I'm getting paranoid these days. After watching what happened at the end of Raw, I'm just immensely paranoid now. I keep seeing like rabbits hovering around above my head, and you never know what that means, or the talking buzzards and such. But anyway, what an exciting, exhausting week. But algorithm, new subscribers, lots of views, yay! That's what we like to see. All we care about.
It's amazing. The numbers are amazing, but what means a lot more to us, I guess, is anyone who is here and they want to have a chat and they want to bring in some comments. Feel free, drop as many comments as you want. We'll highlight them. We'll go through them. It'll be like we're having a chat through the medium of YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching this. But I do appreciate, as I say, being here. We have, of course, got our ever diligent and faithful moderator Mark is in, giving us some news. Gigi Dolan has a knee injury, keeping her out of action. Another torn ACL. And that sounds like it's from the Wrestling Observer, which is Dave Meltzer, right? That's a shame. There seems to be a lot of ACL injuries, especially in the women's roster on NXT. Very, very bizarre. There's going to be some studies going on there soon. And the Wyatt Sick6, we'll get into this, is what we're here tonight to talk about. But the Pat McAfee show was hacked or whatever. Something happened. We will get into it a little bit because it was a cool little tidbit and it sparked off some strange stuff on social media as well. Involved in American politics, but never mind. We've got more of my life, 850. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're having a great Friday wherever you are in the world. Let us know where you're from, where you're watching from. Always good to find out. We've got Lucas in. That's the name of my son as well, so it's a great name. Howdy, yeah, with a smiley face. Someone else who's going to have a smiley face when they sort their audio and stuff out behind the scenes is Dom Smith from Gimme Ho Yeah. You'll have seen him many times if you're watching the Gimme Ho Yeah channel right now. Always around with his Howdy Hangouts. There was one earlier today that was talking about that the Wyatt Sick6 were having burgers in Whataburger. That would be scary, isn't it? Walking in to get a takeaway and you see some people that have just massacred.
Hey, we had a table reserved. We're here. Just open that window one sec.
And yeah, Lucas is asking Mark, do you think the Wyatt Sick6 interrupted Pat's show yesterday as well? Certainly seems so, but I say we'll get on a little bit more to that. So let me throw up some visuals, because as much as you might enjoy seeing me and Sam and eventually Dom, I think you probably want to see a little bit more from the Wyatt Sick6 as they are being coined. And the reason why we know that is because they've released a couple of t-shirts already, which seems very
incredible. Is it me, Andy, or do WWE's marketing department and all their other departments, like this HR is clearly having a lot of difficulty in WWE this week? I mean, there's people on the roster who've just gone on not only did they physically attack loads and loads of people and make them all unconscious in a short space of time, they filled the backstage area, a third-party venue, with tons of dry ice. Think of the bill, think of the cleanup. And not only that, and now they've got a T-shirt released. I mean, I'm not being funny. Just someone's got to do something about these guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure about glorifying people who have gone and massacred the backstage area.
It's in the company handbook. Don't do it. It's happened a bunch of times. No one listens. They never learn.
Dom is just away at the moment. I think he's trying to sort out his mic and headphones and stuff. So I'm sure he'll join us soon. We've got again one of our regulars in is Norma. They are in. Ooh, I'm trying to put it on there. There you go. Interesting that Chad, probably the biggest heel in, I'm guessing, WWE, was involved in this. Again, we're going to go into a little bit more detail. Let's rewind a little bit, because of course the reason why we're here is unfortunately the sad passing of Bray Wyatt kind of sparked this whole thing where we were seeing a little bit of his vision come to life with Uncle Howdy, and then obviously with his passing in the past year, things changed. But what we are seeing now is potentially some of the ideas that were being thrown around when he was with us. But I think it's very poignant just to put this picture up because, of course, without Bray, none of this would have happened. And it's interesting. We'll talk a little bit more with Dom on the fandom side of things, because I think Dom has been very clear that for a good few months, if not longer, he's kind of been stuck in a bit of sort of almost purgatory in terms of his fandom with wrestling. He lost a lot of love because he's very much about the story side and the creepiness and things like that. So we'll go into that more when he joins. But for Sam, I'm just going to ask you straight out, what did you think when you had a chance to watch this? Because I know Dom and Dan covered it on Gimme Ho Yeah, but I'm really keen for you to give us your perspective of how it all went down.
I loved it. I just thought it was brilliant. Yeah, defo get some thoughts on why they targeted Chad. But we'll I think there's a reason that why they've targeted everybody, and I do think it's going to bleed into multiple storylines now. I think some stories are going to get completely derailed. Some rivalries are going to get completely derailed by this. We're going to see some allies become enemies. We're going to see some enemies become allies to help take them down and things like that. Like, this will be a story with a beginning, middle, and end that they've already planned out. But that doesn't mean they're going to get rid of them forever at some point. But in terms of my first impressions, really positive. I've said a few times, I don't need this to be perfect. I don't need this to be Shakespearean. I don't need it to change my life. This is a wrestling show. This is WWE. I think it's important to take a step back and see it for what it is and keep things in perspective. But as somebody who loves the creepy, spooky stuff, I don't need it to be supernatural. I think this is enough. It's the fact that it's a group of wrestlers who are now playing mind games on the rest of the WWE, because like every other wrestler in the WWE, they want status, they want power, they want whatever there is to have. I think taking it down to that is and simplifying it, and that is what they're here to do. They were the unseen, and now they're going to be bloody well seen. That's a great story. We can all get behind it. It even makes all of them somewhat sympathetic. There's shades of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker already in there, and in some of the messages, the idea that they're completely undesirable. We're not going to do it the way Cody did it, though. We're going to do it. You're going to notice us now. This is the equivalent to them shooting Robert De Niro on the talk show host thing. This is that moment for them. Now, however, we're at an interesting point where it needs to move on. There needs to be reprisals. The heel stables like the Judgment Day and the Bloodline, if they've been impacted, they now need to get the Wyatt Sick in their crosshairs. How did the baby faces respond? There's so much they can do with this. And if we just go back to basics, just to what they did on Raw, the visual of it and the way they did it, I don't think they could have done it any better. There were moments, I've watched it now so many times, it's kind of lost its for me, and I'm now kind of poking holes in it a little bit, and I'm seeing the hamminess of it, but I don't mind it being pantomime, because pantomime is a huge part of wrestling. So
yeah, absolutely, and I think there's been a lot of sort of chat and discourse on social media about the future of this. And what I would kind of say is enjoy it in the moment for what it is right now, and then that comes later. You can't change anything we can't change anything by fantasy booking what comes next.
Yeah,
but I think absolutely they nailed the presentation on the night. It went down probably better than I thought they were going to do, to be quite honest. I didn't know what to expect. I feared the worst when I saw they were in, deep Texas, but it wasn't somewhere that was like particularly, it wasn't like a Houston or a Dallas. It was
quite a crowd. Yeah. Who are known for a bit more subdued.
Yeah, and I think they'd even been listed as one of the ones that is a sort of cold crowd. So I bet there was some reservations as to like, oh, what if this just flops because the crowd just don't make noise at all? But I think what they did is they delivered a very good Raw before it. And one of the things I really enjoyed, and I'm about to bring Dom in a second, is they set this up, and it's not everyone would have noticed this. They set this particular scene up by having the backstage with Drew earlier in the night. So you saw what it was supposed to look like when Drew went backstage and had that conversation with Triple H in the back, and you saw the layout properly. So the table was already set in terms of, here you go, this is what it looks like. So when we went backstage, they automatically set the table, and this is what it looks like now. So things have gone horribly wrong. I saw things on Twitter where apparently, if you look up in the background during some of the promos, you can actually see Uncle Howdy in the distance in the corner, like a silhouette who looks like him. I don't know how true that is, or if it's just someone who has an unfortunate shadow. But certainly that's what it looks like. But we are going to bring in someone who has been beating this drum for a long time. They've been delivering so much content onto Gimme a Hell Yeah about Uncle Howdy. It would be remiss of me not to get him on. So I'm hoping audio issues are all sorted. Let's bring on Mr. Dom Smith with a glorious mustache.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Are we good?
Hear you, yep.
It's going to take some getting used to that, Tash, but we'll get there. Well, I've seen you with bigger beards than that, so I suppose it's.
I'm just trying something out, It's all
fair
good.
Enough.
I don't know how to put a poll up, but I wish I could put one saying like, do you think Dom's mustache is better than Dom's out of Judgment Day?
Dom or Dom? Yes, it already is. It's got the Tom Selleck going on. If you ever just compare a Tash to Selleck, you can't go wrong.
It was the Tom Selleck. I was like, that was my model for the. I was
not
like,
the Dom Mysterio.
Not Dom Mysterio.
No, yeah. I was going to say, Andy, just quickly before Dom came in, we were talking about setting the table and all of that. My wife pointed out a great point when we were watching it. She was like, they're all so preoccupied eating with Jey Uso, which went on awkwardly, weirdly long. And then he ran into the crowd and started doing it. That they're all so busy doing that. Stuff's going down backstage, and it was almost like I don't know if you watched Raw Talk after, which was the most awkward Raw Talk I've ever seen in my life after that. But like Jey Uso was like, "Well, I'm the only one." Well, Denny's it is, I suppose. Then everybody else is dead.
Well, they didn't address it on Raw Talk until he said something, and then he was like, "Oh, by the way, Kathy, be careful, because did you see that the woman? Did you see the girl?" So that was kind of like interesting. But Dom, not only have I watched this a few times, I've also watched your reaction, and it was, let me say, it's a joy to see when people are so happy and passionate about wrestling. So for me, on a personal note, it was great to see how much fun and the excitement. Let's face it, at what were you, 3 o'clock in the morning?
Oh yeah. This is why I don't do those streams anymore, man. I was super tired. Dan and I were, we knew this was coming, so it was unlike, the last time I was doing Raw would have been 2 years ago. So it was unlike those days because we knew we had something to wait for. So it kind of kept us going. And just to your point, just as I was backstage, I noticed you were talking about there were numerous clues throughout the broadcast. So there was Rambling Rabbit was above Chad Gable in the locker room. There was a Rambling Rabbit peeking out. There was also numerous references to Rowan's sheep mask was around as well. So there were little things sort of dotted around Raw, which was really cool. So we knew it was coming, but it wasn't until after it happened we were like, that was worth it. Like it felt like, despite Seth's re-debut, which was great, it was not re-debut, Seth's re-emergence, which was fantastic, it did feel like it dragged in the same way in some ways that it did back in the day. So I was definitely flagging by the end of it, but then I'd also been working the day as well. So I was flagging by the end of it. And but then afterwards we were on cloud six, as it were. It was very we were buzzed, and like Emma was like, I didn't hear you make as much noise as when Bray returned, and I think it was very different. This was much more emotional. Like this was like. Well, it was emotional in a different way because, like, Bray's return was just like overpowering. It was like we've been waiting for so long. That I've just seen Mark LFC's comment.
That's the joke, bro.
That was the point. So I think like I was overpowered with emotion when Bray came back because we've been waiting for 2 years without any clue that it was going to happen. It was, well, obviously we knew it was coming, but like, you know, this had been built for so long. Obviously we'd seen the documentary. I know we had the teasers and similar teasers, but like we'd seen the documentary, we knew this was happening. It was very emotional. It was like, if this goes wrong, Bray's, you know, people were saying that Bray's legacy would be trashed if it went wrong, things like that. And it was a different kind of emotion. Like when Bray came back, it was like, whoa, Bray Wyatt is back, former world champion, you know, one of the greatest minds in the wrestling business. This time it was like, God, I want this to work because Taylor could be that. Uncle Howdy could be that. This faction could be the next, what was it?
Wyatt family.
Well, wait, not Retribution. I was going to go for an Undertaker's faction in the Attitude Era. Ministry of Darkness. You know, this could be the next Ministry of Darkness, or it could completely flop. And it was perfect. It was a massive home run, is what I was trying to get to. I can't think of a way they could have made it better. And that was really cool. It was really cool to see a vision of, you know, I mean, effectively Bray Wyatt's vision, you know, posthumously realized. But then also, obviously, there's so much work going on. You know, Jason Baker obviously getting, you know, was there and involved. You know, Rob Fee. So to see everybody's vision in the same way that when Bray's was executed, almost to perfection. I mean, Bray's return was perfect. This was as close to perfect as I could think about it being. So it was wonderful. And I've been on cloud 9, Mark.
6.
Say cloud 6. I've and I think everybody, you know, even people that aren't into this, like into wrestling, I've been showing this to my friends who aren't wrestling fans, who are like, you know, into theater or music, and I'm like, look at this.
Yeah.
And I've never actually done that before. You know, I didn't do that with much of the, you know, I kind of, you know, maybe I still can, but like with the Bray stuff, I didn't do that. But with this, I was like, this is theater. But
wrestling is theater. Yeah. That's a great. I don't like it. That's something I try and stress to people all the time. It's like, if you like theatre, try wrestling because you'll probably like it. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
Absolutely. No, I was just saying, I couldn't have made it better. And it's really nice actually to talk, because this is the first time I've talked publicly with other people on this. So it's nice to sort of sit with you guys and obviously have people in the chat as well. Hello, everyone. You know, because I've loved doing the Howdy's Whole Year Hangouts, and obviously we've got a lovely audience for those, and people have been checking them out, and I really appreciate it, you know, and I'm just so happy that everyone's so happy with it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very often, by the way, these days that you get social media pretty much unanimous that they hit a home run. You know, there's always people who kind of nitpick stuff, but overwhelmingly people said that, you know, this was so well executed, it was so well done. You know, even the stuff where, you know, like Taylor or Uncle Howdy, whatever we're going to call him, you know, and I'm sure we'll find that out, has a little stumble, but it kind of makes sense because he's going through all these bodies that are strewn everywhere, and it's very difficult to see. And it kind of even worked in the case of like, oh my God, there's so much carnage that, like, you know, it makes it a little bit more real for him to sort of have a little stumble, because he shouldn't be able to just walk pristinely and cleanly through like a, you know, like that sort of environment, because it is still dark and whatever. So yeah,
I'm just thinking that it could have been the Shockmaster, couldn't it?
Oh.
It could have been. I could have seen him face plant into the smoke or something. But again, you know, exactly. Well, you know, live television. there's so many variables to something like that. This isn't just a, an all respect, of course, to Seth Rollins, all respect, of course, to everybody else on that broadcast. This isn't just you walk out there, you get a microphone, and you deliver a promo.
Which is hard enough already.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. We're saying that with all respect, of course, to the athletes and performers. But this is bodies piled up, smoke, like not a lot of light. There's a lot of things that could have gone wrong here for all of them.
Yeah,
I thought his stumble looked a little bit, made him look a bit zombie-like. Do you know what I mean? I only realised it was accidental, like on the second proper watching of it. The first time, I was so blown away by the spectacle of it, I didn't even notice his stumble. I was more preoccupied, going, "Oh my God, it's Uncle Howdy!" to actually notice an imperfection.
I think it worked in a comedic level as well, because again, he's looking back, he's looking down at the chaos he caused. Like, oops, okay, there's another one.
Yeah, he was grinning the whole time as well. You could see him grinning, and I thought, is he grinning because he's excited or nervous, or is it a maniacal grin? Like, look what I've done.
Well, there was obviously a lot of nerves there. Like even Rowan, like some of his hand movements, and also Gacy.
Yeah, he was like waiting for a cue, wasn't he? At one point, just spinning his hammer around, and you can see like he goes to do it, stops, and then does it anyway. And you kind of like, no, it's still like it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It was fine, and I think it worked really well. Across the board, even with those little things, I think it actually adds to it. To be honest, and I think the only person in the whole world that can be happier with what they've done this week in terms of audience engagement is one Joe Hendry, and that's so good on you, Joe Hendry. But we're here to talk about Uncle Howdy, and I think there's no shame in given Hendry's global buzz at the moment. There's no shame in that. Uncle Howdy is still trending. The Wyatt Sick6 is still trending, and I think it was on it was trending on YouTube until maybe yesterday or the day before. So clearly an audience way beyond the wrestling audience, the typical wrestling audience, are looking at this and going, what is this? This is great. And, and WWE are doing a great job, as some people have mentioned in the comments, at taking this beyond, just a screen, of course. Like if you go back and
I'm not ignoring those comments, by the way. We will get to them. I just want to kind of slightly linear. There is a lot of comments about Pat's podcast and what happened on there. We'll go into that a little bit further. Bit of patience. There's a lot to kind of unpack and there's a lot to kind of discuss here. So we want to get through. And I think the biggest thing that we can say, or I can say, is remember this was live television done in one take, and they had to get it like the timings right. As you said, they were setting things up as a match was going on. So they had to kind of like make sure this was over here, and it was kind of like one of those magic tricks where it's like, look what this hand is doing while this hand is doing the work. So to get through all that and then have the presentation, and out of all of them, and you guys, you tell me, it was so layered in the sense of when that noise came in where everything's kind of shutting down and then the lights go off, and then you hear and see the door. I had that first wave was like, oh my God, like Bray. And then it kind of breaks your heart because it can't be. And then it went into this horror of like almost like a ring version of Nikki Cross coming out on like crawling out. And I showed it to my wife and she was like, what the hell is that? And like was freaking out. And then that kind of like pointing backstage to then see what's unfolded. But I thought the presentation of the Vulture, who am I right? Thinking it's Dexter Lumis, right?
Dexter Lumis is Mercy the Buzzard.
Yeah, I thought the presentation of him perched up on the side with the guy who, to be honest, looked like his brain's been blown out, which is a little bit disconcerting. I thought that was stunning. And it made me laugh because I went back. I've got this picture and I was like, talk about a glow up. Like, I know that at the time it wasn't the same thing, but like, if you look at the difference between like, what we had, and I get it's not the same, but like,
but they were meant to be humorous, weren't they? Those ones, they were meant to be a little bit more deliberately that way.
When we flick between them and you go, this is like evolved. So we get to see like the true vision. Like this was a case of like, let's do this, let's build to it. Then we get this. And Jason Baker's done some fantastic work of crafting, even like Nikki's mask is very subtle. I thought at first, was it paint? And then I was like, no, she's got like an actual like skin mask on almost.
Yeah, she's got a skin mask. It's funny actually because I'd arranged to speak to Jason somewhere around this time. And he was like, I can speak to you after. I think it was like the end of this week. It was like nothing before that. I have no time. And I was like, yeah, now I get it. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Bless his cotton socks, because we catch up every year, and he's always doing something. But yeah, I think incredible work from him, of course, Rob Fee as well. And like you say, a glow up, and they've had, they've really. The rumors were that this was actually in the plans before the documentary and before this year's Mania. So they've obviously worked, they've obviously worked to this for a long time. They've obviously really thought this out, which is why I've got faith in what they're going to do. Going forward, I have a lot of faith in it because they've really pre-planned it, and Triple H will have been central to that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I was going to say, I was going to ask about. It's a nice touch, like what they've done with giving Rowan the Bludgeon Brother hammer. It's a great little throwback to not so much the Wyatt family, but what they did after the Wyatt family with the Bludgeon Brothers, and obviously with Luke Harper and Brody Lee, as he was in AEW and elsewhere. So it's a great way of honouring him as well.
It is.
And I've got a question with the Loomis when he was perched like a hawk looking down on all the carnage. Was that the Judgment Day clubhouse he was in? Because if it is, the implications are huge.
It's Gorilla, isn't it?
Gorilla, yeah.
It was just Gorilla.
Yeah, it was all just Gorilla. It's an interesting point though, because again, this is going to reverberate across the roster. I genuinely don't think we'll see anything of them on SmackDown. I think it'll be a recovery. Sorry, Sam.
No, I'll tell you why I disagree in a moment.
It'll be a recap because it's such an impactful moment, and I think that. There's so much to unpack, and a lot of the rumors were that it's going to have entire roster implications, which I think is great.
Here's the thing with SmackDown tonight. They can't tonight. Like, yes, they're going to recap it. Of course they are. But if they can't just go, well, this happened on Raw. Wasn't that spooky? Anyway, on with the show. Here's CM Punk, guys. They can't do that.
No, that's exactly why they can't.
So
CM Punk's there. Sam.
Well, I'll get to it.
You've got CM Punk. That's your thing. You're getting CM Punk tonight.
No.
I know. You love CM Punk. Remember, you love CM Punk.
I actually am the biggest. I am the biggest CM Punk fan in all of Gimme a Hull, and I've explained why millions of times, because I was watching his matches before anyone who watches WWE.
I was watching CM Punk before CM Punk was cool, brother.
I actually was. That's so true. I actually was. I was watching CM Punk before he was even drawing X's, because I'm an original CM Punk fan from Ring of Honor. But anyway, my point is, so here's what I think, and I will bet money on this. I think tonight they're going to recap it somberly. They're going to go, guys, this is a very different episode of SmackDown tonight. We're going to give you a recap on the health of some of our officials. Paul Levesque, Triple H, blah, 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 blah. He was attacked. So and so was attacked.
He wasn't attacked.
But whatever. That's an example. But then they're going to go. I've got to get.
Go on.
I've got to get. I'll just finish the point, and then you can pull it apart. Because I tell you what's going to there's no way you're just going to get the normal SmackDown tonight, even with CM Punk. They're going to recap it, and you're going to see Nick Aldis walking around making sure security is beefed up. He's going to say to some peon, to some hero of the independent scene who is way too small to be a security guard, say, have you got this secured? Have you got this locked down? Yes, Mr. Aldis. Then you're going to see him on the phone to somebody, maybe, I don't know, Nick Khan or not, or whoever, and they're going to go, right, we've got SmackDown is on lock, guys. Everything is safe. Then the show is going to continue as normal. Then we get CM Punk and we get all of that stuff. And just when we think we're safe, no security is enough security. Something is happening tonight. It's not just going to go off air tonight with what happened with Cody going kissing babies and waving his belt in the air. I promise you, if it does, it'll be the biggest.
No, it will go off there with
anticlimax.
McIntyre having Claymored CM Punk.
I think that's starting SmackDown. I think what they'll do is they'll have quite a brutal beatdown of Drew beating down CM Punk, because he did it to him in his home city, and I think CM Punk's confirmed to be opening. So if that is the case, I can see Drew just completely destroying CM Punk.
The angle is Drew and Punk, Sam. I'm
but
sorry.
Nothing happened. It doesn't matter.
The angle is Drew and Punk going into SmackDown. I want there to be loads of stuff on SmackDown, but the thing
I don't mean
is,
loads of stuff. There won't be loads of stuff.
It'll dampen it. It'll dampen
They
it.
won't do. They won't do what they did on Raw. They won't do what they did on Raw. It will be smaller than Raw. What it will be tonight is a way of furthering the story. It won't. The massacre has happened. Now is the time where, like tonight, SmackDown are aware of it. They know there's an insurgency now. So, but even their best efforts won't prepare them for whatever Howdy has been cooking up. This time it might be more sinister, more subtle, but they're not going to just recap it and move on. Like, yes, I've got one very important point. Like, yes, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre is going to be one of our SummerSlam main events. Of course it is. But before we, and yes, that story has to breathe. And yes, Punk is probably going to get severely hurt by McIntyre and go off on injury for another 6 months. But here's the thing. All of the storylines that we were enjoying still played out on Raw the other day. And all of a sudden, none of them matter. Now, of course they will. The Chad Gable thing versus Sami Zayn will continue. It's just a turn in the road now. And I actually think that they've done this to make some sympathy for Chad. Or it's going to make Chad worse. It's going to make Chad's underlings that he's abusing sympathetic. Come back into the fold.
No one is sympathetic to Chad Gable right
now.
No,
but
everyone thinks it was Otis and Uncle Howdy just happened to be there doing his. Everyone thinks that this is just a cover up.
Otis and the others are now going to be. Sorry, Andy, I'm nearly. I promise.
We're hijacking the show.
Yeah, sorry.
Like
this was always going to happen. It's this Anthers.
We're like the Retribution.
Don't even say that.
That's what we are. That's what we are to wrestling royalty. Wrestling royalty is we
are your Retribution. We're going to wear shit masks.
What was
never do anything?
So, yeah, wrestling royalty is like the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, and we're like Retribution surrounding.
I wouldn't go that far, Andy. I don't agree with him.
Anyway, go on.
Misfit, Gable wasn't murdered. He's very much alive. He got beaten up, and we're going to see him in a couple of weeks on live TV whinging about getting beaten up. So, no, like, wrestling isn't real. Gable is very much alive within kayfabe and in real life. Gable has just been injured, and they're creating suspense by taking him off TV. That shouldn't need pointing out, because we've all been doing this for a long time. So yeah. So sorry. One final thing. I think all the storylines that we're watching on SmackDown and Raw will continue, but there's now a swerve in every single one of them because everyone's going to be impacted by this. The CM Punk thing is obviously being heavily advertised, but this isn't going to be just your average episode of SmackDown. Something subtle will happen. They're not just going to mess with Raw. Like, so the Wyatt Sick6 are so scary and so intimidating. They respect the brand split. I don't think so. Andy, the floor is yours. We've spoken up.
Well, all I was going to say is the stuff with that I think there's a lot of kind of back and forward about with Chad is, if you think what happened earlier in the night was that Otis and the rest of Alpha Academy left. Now, I think there is something what Dom's saying in terms of the sympathy. What I think will happen is they'll feel bad because they're the good guys. And they'll be like, we left and he got attacked. We should have been there no matter what happened. And they'll feel bad as the lovable losers and the kind of gullible. And what they might do is a similar thing to what Kurt Angle would have done, where he'll have like a big neck brace on or something, and he'd be like, oh, I'm really like hurt and stuff. And he'll kind of be like, you guys, where were you? You're like, I needed you. And I think they'll go down that route, and it will kind of be slightly humorous, but slightly like sinister in the sense of like, that Chad's doing it to pull on that side of things. And that's because there were reports that everyone that wasn't there or who had left the arena, because let's face it, we had Drew leave, we had Alpha Academy leave, we had the GM went after, like Pierce went after Drew. Triple H was kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, sort of thing. So they positioned people like a chessboard to say, we knew they weren't there, they're not there for a reason, etc. And I think there might be something similar tonight where you have Punk and Drew at the beginning, which then takes, let's have CM Punk leave the arena in an ambulance or something, get him out, because then he's not there for what happens later in the show. So the reason why I feel like something will happen tonight is because it would be odd to have, as Misfit said, why would you have a murderous cult? And we'll go into what we think they are in a second. If they're a cult that kind of follows, why would they be bound by the restrictions of USA versus Fox? And that to me would feel a bit weird, because you'd be like, oh, you guys are so sinister, you can't turn up on Fox on a Friday night. Like, come on.
Retribution, you gave us contracts. It died the minute Dijak said that line. The minute Dijak said, oh, they gave us contracts. We're such terrorists. And now we've got contracts, like good little and paychecks. What? Ridiculous. Yeah. And again, they're not a murderous cult, guys. This is family-friendly wrestling. They are a very, very sinister, nasty cult who beat up a lot of people. Nobody died on kayfabe.
There are deeper layers to the Gable thing as well, and potential future feuds that I've seen online. Obviously, you're part of the audience will be with us in chat as well. The people that check out Howdy's Whole Year Hangout and all the other community, creators, Wrestling Wizard, Wrestling Days, etc. Chad Gable betrayed his family.
Yes.
Chad Gable betrayed the Alpha Academy. And in terms of the law of Bray and the law of Uncle Howdy, there's a lot of rumors around. And if you go to the www.com/archive_recovered, which is the journals of Bray, or rumored journals of Bray and journals of Uncle Howdy, there's a lot around betrayal. So there's deeper layers than just Chad Gable getting attacked. Yes. Because it's a murderous cult. He's attacked for a reason, because he betrayed the Alpha Academy, and there's lots of other people that you can say have betrayed factions, families in the past. So there's a lot of people.
Rollins better watch his back.
Yeah, there's a lot of people for Howdy to go after, and the faction. So there's deeper layers, and it'd be interesting to see if he does go after. I mean, I'd love to see it. I really would. It's just, but then maybe we're looking at history pre-Triple H. Like I'm thinking about history. History's dictating my view. So I'm thinking, well, they've had the big moment on Monday Night Raw, and Monday Night Raw is the main brand. So they're not going to want to repeat that on SmackDown, because they've already had it on Raw, and you can only go down from something like that. So I'm thinking. I'm thinking they want people to tune in on Monday. So
they do. But now it's time for subtlety. Now's not time for more. You don't go big and keep going big. Now it's time to let it breathe. Yes, but now maybe there's a manifesto. Maybe there's a guy in the ring tied to a chair, terrified. A member of the crew reading their demands, reading their manifesto, who they are, what they want, why they're here. That we don't need to see them beat people up tonight. We just need to see evidence of their, malevolence.
Well, to be fair, they could even do something as subtle as have someone who's supposed to be like, I don't know, I'm just going to pluck a name out of thin air. Austin Theory is supposed to be wrestling, but he can't be found anywhere backstage. And then everyone starts freaking out because they're like, where is he? And after what happened on Raw, like, I'm worried about him, or have it as, like one of the sort of like the faces, I guess, so there'll be more sympathy behind it. But that's the sort of thing where you go, oh, I'm not sure. I will say I've been seeing a lot of the comments, and I'm going to address some of them now, because there's a lot of stuff going on with Pat McAfee at the moment. Now, yesterday he did his podcast where at the end of the show, he kind of got a bit distracted in the last few seconds and was like, oh, that's weird. A security alarm's just gone off. Ooh. And then he kind of goes, oh, maybe it's the Wyatt Sick6. And then he says, nah, it's fine. And then the feed cut completely. Now he's done another podcast today, which has elevated it to another level, where he was reflecting on being able to, he loves what he does. And then apparently he was interrupted by a message that came up on the screen that just said, you lied. And that was it.
I did. Oh man, well, I'll do something tomorrow on that. I missed that completely.
Man,
That's just happened today. So obviously, like, they are continuing to do things. So whether yesterday was supposed to be he was having a bit of a joke around, and then today they're like, "Oh, you want to use our name as in a sort of blasphemy way? Okay, we'll teach you," sort of thing. And obviously, he's done like sort of bits and pieces of not knowing what was going on, etc. But it would be interesting. I do feel like they have to do something tonight. They don't have to be as prominent, but little subtle things, because I think they need to make sure that people are tuning in Mondays, Saturdays, even maybe on NXTs on Tuesday nights, and make sure people don't know when the next thing is going to happen, and then make sure you are tuning in for everything, because some of what they need is that tangent of going, why should you only watch Raw when you could watch Raw, NXT, and SmackDown? And that's a really interesting thread. Now, I don't want them to be overused, and this is where we'll kind of go into our hopes for the future. And Dom, I'm going to kick off with you. What is it that you want this to be? What do you want it to turn into? What are your kind of...
Well, I think taking inspiration from the original Wyatt family is probably the way to go in terms of longevity, because as much as, you know, I'm a big fan of spooky stuff, as you know, I think in the majority, you know, can tire of that pretty quickly. So I think the way to go is the OG, you know, again, the cult, the murderous cult, which I think is a lot of... you know, sort of echoed in the comments a lot, that you know, rather than a supernatural faction of people that can sort of vanish into thin air. Now, was that what we saw on Monday? No, I think there's obviously every reason for people to be like, well, this is supernatural, this is spooky stuff. But I think it'll turn, I think it has a lot of potential to turn even darker and turn into a cult sort of style thing. I think, you know, that's what I want. I want a good few months of this. You know, I mean, part of me was I was gonna say before it ends, before they break up, but actually there's no reason why like the Wyatt family were still kind of together for years. Even when they broke up, they were still kind of involved. You know, the New Day, I suppose you could say, you know, they go off and do their own things, but always come back together. They've always got each other's back. So maybe this is like the anti New Day, where these guys will never officially break up, but they'll always have each other's back like a family. And that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see them all, you know, 6 months down the line, start going off doing their own thing, you know, but they all come back together and it becomes a family that still exists in, fingers crossed, 3 years plus, you know. That's what I'd like. I want Wyatt family inspired faction, and that doesn't have some kind of weird, you know, oh, you've messed me, you've messed me around, Joe Gacy. This is me as Dexter Loomis since I got the mustache or whatever, right? So, like, you know, you've messed me around, Joe Gacy. You're a bad person. I'm breaking, you know, I'm going to cause friction within the faction, and, you know, like a Judgment Day. I don't want that. I don't want a Judgment Day. And pretty much every faction you can think of, nation, you know, even back in the day, any of that sort of faction dissension, because I guess these guys as a cult, as a murderous cult, are kind of above that. That's what I'd like to think. You know, I'd like to think they were above that, and they go away, but they come back together, you know. So that's what I want. But whether WWE can resist the temptation of, say, you know, someone turning on Uncle Howdy for the leadership of the group is another matter, you know.
So, Sam, before we come on to it, I just want to kind of give a few shouts, because there's comments are popping off, and I want to make sure I give everyone the chance to say hello. So let's go through. Obviously, Misfits a good friend of our channels, especially for Give Me a Hug. Yeah, it's always great to have you in. We've got Tom Talks Rubbish in as well, which is great. And I believe he's just had a video with a very prominent wrestling media with Chris Van Vliet, which is a big get for the channel. So go check out Tom's interview with Chris over on Tom Talks Rubbish as well.
And Dan Hargreaves, someone even bigger, someone far more influential.
Some may say
than Sean Ross Sapp, than Van Vliet, than all of them, is Dan Hargreaves. Monday Night Raw, Hollywood down. Sorry.
So it's the only person he can get now is Meltzer, right? That's the only one he's got left to.
Yeah. Well, Chris was Tom's go-to. That was the That was the aim, was to get to Chris Van Vliet, and he's done it now. So what's next?
Brian, well, he's done Dan Hargreaves. Where'd you go from there? He could do Alvarez. Do you know who I think he needs to interview one more time? Because he's done you and me, Dom, to death. You have Tom. No one wants to hear from me anymore. The irony is strong here. He needs to do Anthony Neyland one more time. Let's have an up to date with Anthony Neyland. Let's have that, please.
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
We've got Woo Riders DG in as well, who's putting a few comments in, which is great to see. We've got Joe Henry. So as Dom said, he's had a big week. So we are very much believers in Joe Henry, and that was a fantastic debut for him in NXT.
It
very good,
really was.
And Sam, I do still have your signed.
Oh, is that for me? Oh, yeah, he did that for me, didn't he?
So I still need to send it to you in the post.
Yeah, we'll
it's
sort
probably
it.
increasing in value now.
Well, good. You keep holding it for longer. I was going to say, Joe, I know you watch this religiously. Obviously, you do. Well, he does know who we are, doesn't he? Particularly Wrestling Spirit. So thank you for that, Joe Hendry. Okay, gentlemen. Before I start with the Bray stuff, just to point out, Austin Theory was once in a family in WWE. In fact, he was in two. He was part of Seth Rollins, and then he was in The Way, and he's technically screwed over both of them. But so, just saying.
So, sorry, Sad, 2 seconds. We've got Tombstone Forever as well, put in a very good point. What if they're like anti-heroes? So there's some rhyme or reason to who they attack. Because we kind of saw stuff like that with Bray, where everyone that he kind of went against would then flip in terms of their personality, would change, like The Miz or Seth or whoever. So there is that aspect they could go down. We've also got WWE with games. There was news that Wyatt Sick6 can have a challenger on Raw. I haven't seen that. It did stand to reason. Like, surely someone's going to call them out and go like, "Well, I'm not going to stay around." Like, you would have thought Bron Breaker's not going to be like, "Well, I'm getting out of here." He's more likely to be like, "Well, of course, I'm going to go for it." So, we've got A. Austin, which we just talked about Austin Theory, which is strange. A. Austin, surprise!
I told you they all watch.
Misfit. I don't want to see Nikki Cross hypnotize Chelsea Green. That would take it out. Yeah, I think a lot of what we're agreeing on is that like the supernatural stuff is what's been kind of people are wary of, because of like the line I keep seeing is the bell has to ring at some point because this is wrestling. Yes. And that was some of the criticism that Bray received. And I think when we did the review of the Bray Wyatt documentary, one of the lines that really stuck out for me, Don, was when Triple H said it was great, it was amazing creative.
Yes,
the bell had to ring, and that was where it created problems going forward. So that's what they need to avoid.
Yeah, I think that's what they'll have addressed, and that's a really good point you make, Andy. And I think Taylor is not above that. None of those members, will be above that. They are working, they are doing a job, and they are inspired by Bray. They are taking inspiration from Bray, and that is clear. That is very, very clear in what we've seen. That it is taking inspiration from Bray, but it does need to work in the ring, and I imagine that they've worked very hard on figuring that out. And I am, since that has been on social media, probably the biggest criticism of Bray over the last few years, and obviously it was mentioned in the documentary. I think it is a real, they will have worked really hard to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, and I'm just personally, I'm a huge Dexter Lumis fan. I'm so glad that he managed to get to this point, because I was worried, when some of the rounds of releases, that he would be prime target because he's just not been seen for ages. But for him to be involved in this is perfect, because when he first came into NXT, he was doing that whole creepy stuff. He's done the Samuel Shaw stuff when he was over in TNA. So this is made for him. And Joe Gacy, obviously, he tried his best in NXT to get that that faction over, but didn't really. I think he was always unfortunately stuck with the whole "you're a cheap man's" or Wish version of Bray Wyatt. But here they brought him into the fold. Now he can lean into it, which is great. But yeah, one last one. We've got Chris McLaren, who's saying Julia is out for NXT Heatwave due to wrist injury. Yeah, I think there was rumors that she broke her wrist. I think in the new Joshi, or I can't remember what the name of it is. It's the new Joshi one they've set up in Japan, the female company. But yeah, it sounds like she had a bad injury, which is sort of delaying the NXT plans that they had, which is why we're seeing this like constant rotation of the women's challenges on NXT. I'm sure she'll be there soon. Sam, I've delayed it enough. Tell me, fantasy book away. What are we doing with the Wyatt Six? What is happening? Also in the comments, drop your. I want to know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments. What are your hopes and dreams and plans for the Wyatt Six moving forward? Sam, take the floor.
I'm out of practice doing my fantasy booking, so let me just warm up. Yeah, so right. There's one thing everyone isn't talking about with this, and it's what the original plan for the Fiend and Uncle Howdy was going to be before we lost Bray. Now, nobody knows for sure other than creative, Bray himself, Triple H, people like that. But my theory, my headcanon is this. Before Bray left TV because he got ill, he and Howdy were kind of on the same page. Bray almost a little bit reluctantly at this point. It was kind of caving to Howdy and working with him. We saw the weather forecast. We saw all of that stuff. We saw Howdy finish off LA Knight after their match, which I felt was a little bit forced on them personally. And I think I'm the only person in the world who enjoyed that match. But anyway, but anyway, apart from the ridiculous sponsor. So where does it go from there? So in my view, at that point, is this insurgency story would have happened then. Bray would have pushed Howdy away, who may or may not have been revealed as Bo Dallas or Taylor Rotunda by that point. And Bray would have done this because we knew about the Wyatt Six way like over a year ago, like before we all went to Mania. Or one Mania ago, we knew the Wyatt Six was a trademark, something they were doing, thinking about. So I think Howdy was going to bring out the Wyatt Six and cause utter havoc. And Bray was going to try and, first of all, ignore them. But then eventually, being a top babyface on SmackDown, was probably going to get involved and try and sort them out. End of the day, it's his wayward little brother. Lie for me, brother. Love one another. I do think there was going to be some kind of feud between them. But eventually, things get hardcore. Things get rough. Things get bad. Bray does the thing Howdy's been trying to make him do. He brings back the Fiend. But he brings back the Fiend to take care of Howdy, to take him out, which he does at WrestleMania, overwhelmingly as a babyface, which the Fiend could and did work as. Because let's remember, when Retribution were doing their crap, it was the Fiend who appeared one day and killed them all. All right, it was a little bit Cena and the Nexus, but it was still the crowd, and there was no crowd, it was the Thunderdome, but the visual crowd were very much behind Bray and not these idiots. So, but in this story, in this fantasy booking, Howdy is very much the villain. He is taking people out backstage, making them look dead with fake gunshot wounds and stuff like that. By the way, it's never been confirmed that was a gunshot wound, or that was just a wound on Chad's head. And the other guy, yeah, I know what you mean, but it was made to look that way. But so fast forward to now, there is no Bray. They can't do that. I do think that story would have ended with Bray outgrowing the Fiend, realizing he doesn't need the Fiend. The Fiend is gone. He can move on and be one of the top baby faces in the company. And you know what it's now time for? To go after the title, go after it the right way. No Fiend. Maybe still have the puppets, maybe still do the Firefly Funhouse and have, play mind games on perhaps the heels. So when I was originally thinking, how are they going to do this? I thought that they might bring Uncle Howdy back as some kind of Dark Avenger. Because of Taylor Bo Dallas's sympathy from the real life audience, and in real life, they might make Howdy almost a figure who goes after the villains, the evildoers, and punishes them for their evil, and maybe looks after people like LA Knight. Maybe there's a story where LA Knight is like, "Look, you creepy weirdo in the top hat. I had a lot of respect for your brother, but I don't flipping need you interfering in my business." Maybe like he's attacked by the bloodline of the Judgment Day. Lights go out, the music hits in. Howdy annihilates the enemy. But now we've gone too far from that. Now they've gone down the other way. They've gone down the insurgency route. So I think they're gonna do what they were planning on doing with Bray, but with someone else. Now I don't know who it is. I think there's going to be an alliance of sorts against the Wyatt Six. I do think there needs to be now they can't no sell like Bray did at Hell in a Cell. That Triple H isn't stupid. He knows that that didn't work and we can't do that again. So the Wyatt Six are going to get beaten up now and then, but the lights are going to go out. They're going to run away. Things are going to happen. They can't be buried, but they also can't look indestructible. They need to be wrestlers having an acceptable win and loss ratio. So I think that's what. But now Howdy is the final boss. It's not Roman Reigns or The Rock. Sorry, guys. Howdy is now the final boss in the traditional sense. And we need to get to him. Now, somebody will be facing Howdy at WrestleMania in Las Vegas. We don't know who. We don't know how they're going to get there. But I think this faction is going to have multiple people fighting them. It might even go into a Hell in a Cell or Survivor Series or a War Games. We don't know. But ultimately, somebody comes out of this a top babyface. But there is also, sorry, Don and Dom's itching. 1 second, dude. They also need to prepare for the day where this stable or members of it become faces, which one day will happen. Like, they will be defeated because that is how wrestling works. The villains, like the Bloodline, were eventually defeated. The new Bloodline will be defeated, but doesn't mean they have to go away. They just evolve and become a new version of what they are. So that's where I am, Dom.
No, I was just making a note from Misfit's point. Extra security after what happened on Monday night is what Nick Aldis has just said. So maybe you're getting something tonight. But to go on what you said, I think that's really interesting booking, and I'd be fine with that. But again, who's to say? This is the problem with fantasy booking, is that they could be jobbed out in 3 months. We could be seeing, I think Karrion Kross is such a talent. But look at the Final Testament. Karrion Kross, when Karrion Kross came in, was eyeing up Roman Reigns.
Yes.
Oh,
what could have been?
So let's not ignore the fact that this could all go completely arse over tit.
The problem with that is, like, I honestly think you could have Karrion Kross against The Rock, Stone Cold, Mick Foley, Hulk Hogan, and he's still no one would even know he's there. Like you could put him in the ring with the best person that's ever wrestled, and no one will care. I actually think, like, his presentation at NXT was very good, but the minute that Adam Cole did that promo on him, he was finished. Like, the minute he was, like, kind of called him out for going, they gave you the girl, they gave you the smoke, they gave you the entrance, and then you know what they need to do for me? Ring the damn bell.
Oh,
he was done. Like they finished him in one promo.
I think he's quite a talent. I think he's
100%. I just don't think they know how to use him. And I also think AOP was a misstep because I don't think they were ever over, even in NXT, because their story was so entangled in getting DIY to where they needed to be. That was all that ever was, really.
Yeah. What we need is they need like different people are going to get taken down by the Wyatt Six. We are going to see some shock storytelling. Now, they can do that without burying some of their biggest acts as well. There are clever ways, because I trust Triple H with this, because like the thing, it sounds like I'm putting everything at Vince McMahon's door, and I put an awful lot of it there. But like when Triple H took over, and it was like, right, this is the new regime, there was an interruption. Vince did come back, did wave his tiny little thing around a little bit more at one point, and did ruin a couple of things. Now, generally, we stayed the course from some of his because he couldn't do this by the end. He could not do this by the end, and I think the difference with the Wyatt Six is we're not going to have that. There's not going to be that stutter, that stumble now, because I think with Karrion Kross, he really worked well at the start of NXT. When the music hit, he didn't say anything. He destroyed people in the ring. Every now and then, wife comes out, puts down the hourglass, tick-tock, walks off. That's all you need to do with Karrion Kross. You just got to follow through with it. You've just got to actually make sure when the time comes, he does take down that top babyface. Maybe not Cody, maybe not whoever's holding the big gold belt, but he does ultimately kill a babyface, a little bit like Bron Breakker did to Ricochet. You've got to do something like that. Maybe he does it to another dastardly heel. But I actually think this is a chance to rehabilitate him, because if Misfit's right, if the Wyatt 6 do target Karrion, I love the idea of Karrion Kross just sitting in the dark after that, staring at his hourglass, doesn't say anything, just looks at it, turns it around. End of promo, end of package. And after that, we see him attacking them, because there needs to be a fight back. The biggest question is, once they've built these guys up, who does the fight back? Is it Jey Uso? Is it Cody? Do Judgment Day turn face? They're about to have their own civil war. There's a big bloodline civil war brewing. So my question is, who are the ones they end up in the ring with? That's my question.
Well, we're going to start wrapping things up here, because we could wax lyrical and talk all night, but we like to keep these things, to about an hour or so. For what it's worth, anyone who's interested in my sort of opinion, I think Misfit was probably as close as to how I feel about it. If you've ever watched Devil's Rejects, House of 1,000 Corpses, things like that, I think that is the way to do this. Make them an obsessive cult. That love the Fiend and love Bray. I think there's more story behind that, because we've never seen like a proper cult worship like group or faction. We've flirted with it, but I think this is an opportunity that then makes it believable that they could take a loss here and there, or they could go for a championship, because they could go, oh, we want to do it in the name of, and they lay it at the kind of like an altar for the Fiend or for Bray Wyatt, and that's the kind of thread, and that's very much why they're doing what they're doing, because they were inspired by the story of Bray Wyatt, and they were inspired by the Fireflies, that they came out of the darkness, because they can't stand to see Jey Uso have the Fireflies surrounding, because that's not his. That is the families and things like that, and that's what they've kind of got to nail into. And and I think there's aspects to. There's a lot of questions. Is the Wyatt 6? Is it a sort of spiritual thing of the sixth person will always be Bray? Or do they bring in Alexa Bliss into this as the sort of like another de facto leader, because she was so intrinsically involved?
Bray told her to carry it on, So Bray got Alexa got the nod effectively. So it would be a shame not to see her at some point.
So Howdy was stalking Alexa as well at one point. Howdy was stalking her. Like, there was even a bit where he interrupted a match between her and Bianca Belair to mess with Belair to try and give Bliss the victory.
So lots of questions. We don't have all the answers. All we can do is what everyone else does and speculate as much as possible. But that is going to do it for tonight. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. As I said there, you've got Wrestling Royalty, you've got Gimme a Hole Yeah. If you subscribe to both, fantastic. You've also got on Gimme a Hole Yeah, Dom will continuously be covering all the kind of goings on with the Howdy Hangouts. You can watch it all with the guys as they're going along, do the watch alongs with Sam on SmackDown tonight. You've got Dan on Raw on Monday. And if AEW is your bag, you've got Anth on a Wednesday night. We'll take you through that as well. We do these Friday night features, which is always talking about the biggest things of the week. Now, obviously, we could have talked about Joe Henry. We chose tonight to talk about this big news of the Wyatt 6 and the return. And I just think it's great to have a lot of people back in the product who had maybe become a little bit distant from it because there wasn't that link there. It's great to have Dom back invested in wrestling again. And let's face it, wrestling should always be a variety show. There should always be a little bit of flavor for everyone to involve. And the bigger questions now is, where do we go from here? But that's exciting, and it should be celebrated. And what else should be celebrated is these two guys here who do a fantastic job. And if you want to see more of our work, you can also check out WrestleSphere, which has got plenty of interviews with lots of people from TNA, including Joe Henry. You've got WWE interviews on there. You've got AEW interviews in there. You've even got this week, Dom, who was your interview that you did?
Ricky Shane Page from MLW, who's part of a faction called The Calling with Raven from ECW, of course, ECW fame. That was a big one for me because I'm a huge MLW fan. Go and support MLW. And yes, please support WrestleSphere and support Wrestling Royalty. I mean, we're all in it together anyway. We're all having a wrestling content orgy, but please support Andy support Wrestling Royalty, support WrestleSphere, support Give Me a Hull, yeah. Thank you.
Tonight, SmackDown. We're live for SmackDown. Let's see who's right. Let's see if the security is there and if they make any bloody difference to whatever's going to happen. Because I think they're all going to die again. But,
well, what better place to leave it than someone possibly dying on SmackDown? We've had a great time talking to you tonight. Thanks, guys. Even if you're watching this after the fact, drop us a comment. We will make sure we get back to you. We appreciate it as always. Have a lovely weekend full of wrestling, full of whatever you like to do in life. Thanks. He's been Sam. He's been Dom. I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty and Give Me a Hull, yeah.